here in Allen, we think outside the box a lot, and you have to with our numbers. And how you teach the amount of kids that we teach, you got to think outside the box. And it really comes down to teaching human beings and making it about humans, which we'll get into.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everything Band, a podcast that features conversations with composers, conductors, and performers of music for winds and percussion. My name is Mark Connor. I'm a composer and educator, and each week I have the great fortune to speak with and share the stories and wisdom of musicians and leaders in the band community. The Everything Band podcast is a proud member of the Music Teachers Development Podcast Network. The Muted Network provides support in the form of audio on-demand programming designed by and for music educators. You can find more information about our network at mutedpodcasts.com. Before we begin, I'd like to thank all of you for listening. I really appreciate your time and hope that you are finding value from these interviews. I rely on word of mouth and social media to bring the show to new listeners. If you think you know one or two people who might find these interviews useful, please let them know about it. You can also help by following me and sharing posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Remember, help your students live up to the best that is in them through music. And now on to my next guest, Philip Obado. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Hey, Mark. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for joining me today. I know you're very busy down in Allen, Texas. Can you take a moment to introduce yourself and tell the listeners who you are and what you're doing?
Sure. My name's Phil Obado. I'm the director of bands in the Allen Independent School District in Allen, Texas. Allen is a growing town. We're only about 20 to 30 square miles, so we're not really that big of a town. But maybe 10 years ago, it was probably farmland. And in those 10 years, the growth has been incredible. I think we're, hopefully the Chamber of Commerce people aren't listening right now, but I think we're right around 100,000 people right now, 100,000 people, which isn't necessarily small anymore, but it's not necessarily huge, which sort of contributes to how the Allen Band has become what it is now. I think that incredible growth. But as the director of bands in Allen Independent School District, I'm the head high school band director, and I work with my staff at Allen High School and Lowry Freshman Center, grades 9 through 12. And we do what every high school band does. It's just our numbers, which I'm sure we're going to get into, are pretty gargantuan, if you will. And I also work with our middle school band staff, trying to keep an aligned curriculum from grades 6 through 12. So that's pretty much the job in a nutshell. There's a lot of nuance and a lot of other things that we do and a lot of challenges that we have being the kind of program we are.
Sure. And so there is a lot to talk about because of those numbers, and which we will get to, are incredible. So you're kind of like the exurbs North Dallas, like really far out. How far is it to the downtown area?
We're about 20 miles north of Dallas. 20 miles doesn't sound a lot, but when you travel south on Highway 75, you go through Plano and Richardson before you start hitting the Dallas area. So traffic gets to be a challenge in construction. I know Dallas is known to be the concrete jungle, and this is only my second year at Allen, but I've come to embrace the fact that I'll be sitting in traffic going through Plano every time we go to Dallas. So,
Phil, can you tell me about your background growing up and how you got to Allen? I know that you have some interesting twists in your path that I want to kind of explore.
Sure. I don't know how far back we want to go.
The very beginning.
The very beginning. All right. Page 1, upper left-hand corner. To let you know, that question, that age-old question, what do you want to do when you grow up? Again, I'm not sure what I want to do when I grow up, other than make music. And when I started this whole journey, if you will, I never thought I'd be a high school band director. I wanted to be a trombone player. I grew up in the Tampa Bay area in a town called Port Richey, Florida, and I happened to be a pretty decent trombone player, and I wanted to be a trombone player or band director. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up applying, and I was a Seminole. I know I'm talking to an alum from Florida State, but I wanted to go to Florida State University since I was in high school, and that's where I was going to go. But strange circumstances happened, and and I auditioned for Ithaca College. My private teacher, her sister went to Ithaca College, and I had the director of bands in an all-state clinic when I was in high school. So I was like, I'll apply at Ithaca. So I ended up going to Ithaca College, got my Bachelor of Music and Performance, which is trombone performance. So that I got bit by the trombone bug there, and I wanted to be a trombone player. There's this interesting story. I was in the practice room at like 2:30 in the morning. That's what you do when you're a performance major. You're practicing at 2:30 in the morning. When it sort of hit me that, what am I doing? It's 2:30 in the morning. I got to pack it up. I need to get some sleep. I got an 8 a.m. class. And then that voice inside my head, when you're a performance major is, someone's practicing a half hour longer than you. So what did I do? I ended up practicing another half hour. And I just came to this realization that I don't know if that's healthy for me. And so I decided, I think I'm going to do the music ed route. I'm going to finish my performance degree, do my recitals, do all that. And I was going to be band director. So I went from trombone player to band director. And then I started doing the conducting thing. Ithaca, I had Rodney Winther was my first director of bands. And then we had an interim. And then I had Steve Peterson's first year at Ithaca College. And he did an advanced conducting class for undergrads, which not many programs do that. And I got bit by the conducting bug. It's like, I want to be a college band director. So I planned my life that I was going to teach high school band for 3 years. Let me rewind a little bit. I was going to graduate with my bachelor's degree in music ed. I was going to go right to get my master's degree in conducting. I was going to teach for 3 years. I was going to get my doctorate degree, and I was going to be a college band director. And that's actually the path of a lot of people, but that was going to be me. So what did I do? I graduated from Ithaca College. I went to Florida State, back to Florida, and I had James Croft as my mentor. And he's so funny. He goes, "Well, Phil, I like you. Did you have any encounters with Dr. Croft at Florida State?"
I took my first year of my doctorate there. I took the advanced wind conducting, and it was the conducting class that was meant for the non-conductors.
Okay.
So like all the composers had to take a conducting. So. Gotcha.
It was story time, wasn't
it? It was story. It was story time. It was like band history hour.
Yes, and I loved every second of it. He just is a great storyteller, and his conducting classes were just like that. But he said, normally I don't take people right out of school, but Phil, I like you, and this is sort of a testament to Jim Croft as a human being. He knew that I didn't have any public school experience. So my TA position was at Florida High, which was the Florida State University school. And there was a band director there, but she didn't do marching band. So my assistantship in the fall was to help do the marching band. So I really started discovering the whole teaching bit there and, thinking that I'd be this ultimate teacher, and I was clearly not. But that was a great TA position for me, not having any public school experience and working on my master's degree. Anyway, I finished my master's degree at Florida State, and then I ended up teaching at South Fork High School in Stuart, Florida. I taught there for 3 years. So I moved to Orlando after 3 years teaching in South Florida, and I taught, 6 or 7 years, I can't remember, at University High School, which at that time was one of the biggest schools in the state of Florida. When I was there, it was probably around 245 or so students. The numbers were going down because there were more and more schools opening up, and university ended up being a relief school. And after about 7 years, I ended up opening a brand new school, East River High School, on the east side of Orlando, which was a relief school for University High School. And I was there just for 2 years. So I ended up teaching public school for 12 years, when I originally said I was going to teach for 3. And the reason is I loved it. I loved teaching kids, and there's something about going to marching band contests. And I know that's going to be later talking about contests. There's something about it. It's just a lot of fun. The kids love it. I loved it. There's a healthy way to do it. But I just loved seeing young people just make music and just really do the things that they love doing. And that's a lot of the reason why I did it. But my wife and I started talking about the future. Orlando was not where we wanted to settle down. To let you know, Orlando is a great place to visit. But we were done. We were done living in Orlando, and there's no negativity to Orlando. It just wasn't for us anymore. So we talked about. I always wanted to do the conducting thing and the college thing. So after about 12 years of public school teaching, I started doing the conducting symposiums. And as probably previous guests have told you, that's how you get into these conducting programs. So I started doing the conducting symposium route, was looking at Texas, was looking at the University of Michigan, was looking at Michigan State. And when it all came down to it, I ended up going to Michigan State for my DMA. I spent my time at Michigan State, great few years, some great colleagues, obviously, some great mentors there. And then I got my first college teaching job at Illinois State University. It was a one-year position, made some wonderful friendships, but it was a one-year position. After that 1 year, I found a great job as assistant director of bands at Baylor University, where I was there for 3 years. And I ended up finding this opportunity to be at Allen High School. Never thought I'd be a high school band director again. And here I am sitting at Allen High School in Allen, Texas. And I love every second I'm here. We have great kids, great colleagues, and I love my job.
That's awesome. So the question I want to ask, and you and I have already talked about this off the air, is that decision to leave, because as we talked about, is I have a similar story. I left the college teaching ranks. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big decision because, as you mentioned, when you go to get a doctorate, you generally have to be driven to do that by something inside that you want to teach at that level. Mm-hmm. And for me, leaving has been very difficult on my ego. It hasn't been difficult as a life choice. It's been good. But for my ego, there's a part of me that still clings to that. And so I want to ask about that decision to leave Baylor and what that was like.
That was a very challenging decision because I worked really hard. And as everybody who works on their DMAs or their PhDs, the terminal degree is always a college gig. And you're right, there's some ego in there, especially, I'm a conductor and I know a lot of conductors and we are a little ego driven and that's okay. All musicians have that ego. That's an important part of the music making. Mm-hmm. But that was never the plan to leave Baylor. Things were great at Baylor. I was having a great time. I was learning lots. But it all came down to a good friend of mine his name's James Henderson. He was a former assistant back at University High School in Orlando. We were talking about doing a concert band camp, I guess. And we started going over the logistics. And I said one innocuous thing to him. And I said, man, I miss a lot of this stuff. And then James goes, well, you should come back to do high school. I was like, no, I'm not interested. I'm doing things that I like doing. And that was another life. And he says, isn't Allen looking for a band director? I said, that's that big school in Texas, right? It's like, yeah. What about that? And I said, no, not interested. Fast forward to TMEA. And one of my friends who taught in Orlando was one of the feeder schools, middle schools here in town. And we were just having lunch talking about the program and something about it. Just, I couldn't stop talking about Allen High School and what cool things happen here. And I brought it back to eating lunch with Eric Wilson, who's the director of bands at Baylor, and the associate director of bands, Isaiah Odejima. We just started talking about it. And one of them goes, why don't you apply? I'm like, I'm not interested in applying. I don't want to lead anybody the wrong way. Well, you've talked about it the entire lunch, over the entire period of lunch right now. I think you should apply. And that means you'll know if that's something that you want to do. I was like, okay. So I put my application in, and it turned out to be 3 separate interviews. This was like a college job.
Yeah.
I had to pass round 1, round 2, and round 3. And when I finally got to round 3, it was with the principal, who's an amazing leader. I had some questions for him, and he couldn't answer the questions. But he said he would find out. So as soon as I left my interview, it went really well, but I had so many questions that weren't answered. So in my head, I knew what I was going to do. I was going to stay at Baylor as planned. So I'm out with a basketball band in New York City, and I don't know. I think I was walking through Times Square or something, and my phone rang, and it said Allen, Texas. And I was like, I know what this is. And I had to think, how do I turn people down? I hate this.
Yep.
And, I wasn't planning on doing it. But finally, I got the moxie to call him and do my thing. And he actually answered every single one of my questions and then some. And then they made it very appealing. And I was like, wait a second. This is everything I always wanted to do. And I was like, I wasn't planning on going back. And I ended up talking to Eric Wilson. And we actually talked for hours. And this was it was already after our basketball game. And it was like 1 a.m. And mind you, Baylor's it is a Baptist school. And Eric asked me what is your calling? What is your calling? And I was like, oh, that's deep. So over the next day or two, I had to really think what I want to do with my life. What I want to do when I grow up. And it was that I worked so hard. I don't want to leave doing the college thing. Everything's great. I love what I do. I love the fact that I'm making music with artists and having the kind of students that I have. But then I love public school. I love everything about public school. I love how everyday kid can have the opportunities that go beyond a normal high school kid. Making music is just beyond, period, the end. And there's something about that always interested me. Plus I know we're going to talk a little bit about Allen, the program, but there's a lot of bells and whistles here in Allen that were really attractive. And I kept hitting, not literally, but figuratively hitting my head in the wall. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then it finally came to me, like, who do you serve? And to me, it was the student, and I just remember story after story when I was teaching in Orlando of a student that was on the verge of going the right path or the wrong path. And I just let them in band. And there's something about band. It's the activity. It's the kind of kid that's in band. It's the focus that we have. This kid who could have gone the completely wrong direction and he wasn't the best percussionist that I've had, but he turned into be an amazing musician, an amazing kid that stuck in band and made some of his lifelong friends that helped, put him on the right track. And I thought about stories like that. I thought about story after story, teaching public school for 12 years. And it's about that kid, college kids are lost too. But, there's somewhat a little bit of direction there. But when you start talking to, average 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, they might have a direction, but having that influence to create, a positive, life-changing time of a kid's life to put them in the right path, or, making music, because we all know that music is the greatest thing ever. And creating these opportunities for young men and women was it. And at that point, it was actually super clear. I'm a public high school band director because I love it. I love the kid. I love the activity. I love everything about it. And it's my second year at Allen. It feels amazing seeing kids every single day. And last year we took the wind ensemble. We played at the we were a laboratory ensemble at the NAFME convention in Dallas, and Cynthia Johnson Turner was our clinician. At the whole end of it, she just was praising. Those kids were just awesome. They were super. Congratulations on the program, so on and so forth. And I said, you know what? I get to see these kids every single day. And then she looked at me and she said, Phil, I'm kind of jealous that you get to see these kind of kids that make music, that love what they do, that are super focused, that go beyond pleasing the director. They're doing, service of the music and service of the composer. And that's what it's about. And that just reaffirmed that conversation I had with Dr. Turner, that, this is the place to be. And music education is such an important part of of young people's lives. And that's why I'm here, and I love it.
Yeah, that story resonates so very much with me. All right, Phil, can you tell me, so we've talked a little bit about it, we've nibbled around the edges, but can you tell me about the program at Allen? And it's exceptional that a town with only 100,000 people has a program like this.
I didn't start this. This was already, when I got here, the numbers were amazing. When you put the marching band, and we're just going to start with the high school first. If you go on YouTube and you just look up Allen High School Marching Band, we call ourselves the largest band in the land, and I don't think there's a band anywhere on the planet that's as big as we are.
Including college bands. This year we marched 744 on the field. I mean, it's incredible. 744 kids, and this wasn't the biggest band. This has been above 800 in the past, and based on our numbers coming in, it looks like we're going to be in the 800 round. And this is just marching. We don't split our marching band. We put everybody out there. Here at Allen, we believe that we include everybody. And you know, we have a great football team here too. And people think that it's really hard to be a starter because of how many kids that are in the program. Here in the high school alone, I think we're about 6,700 students, grades 9 through 12. So to start on that football team, that's pretty hard. That started on the baseball team. It's pretty challenging. But we believe here in the band department that if you're in band, you're part of it. You're part of Friday night. You're part of, and that's a big deal in Texas. Friday nights, the Friday Night Lights in Texas. We have there's some. You can look it up. Our stadium. I know it's the $72 million stadium that seats 19,000 people, and it's packed every single Friday night. It's a staple here in Allen. We believe in the community. We believe in Allen ISD, and it culminates in that stadium on Friday nights. The whole town is there. It's like a celebration of who we are as a community. And what we do in band is we include everybody. We're part of that. If you're in band and people come to Allen, come to do band, move to Allen to do band, to be part of this thing, which we call the escadrille. It's French for squad. So the escadrille is the whole marching band. It's all the winds and percussion, plus your color guard and the drill team. Drill team's a big thing here in Texas. So if you want some numbers, we have 9 through 12 band. We have 614 wind and percussion. When you add the auxiliary units, we had about 72 in the color guard and 60 in the drill team this year. So that's about 746. That was our numbers this year. 7th and 8th grade bands, we have 648 7th and 8th grade, and then our 6th grade band, where we do beginning band, we have 543 beginning band kids. So with taking the auxiliaries out, 6 through 12, we have 1,805 kids in the band program, which is an incredible number. So yeah, we are that obviously, you know, when you travel, just marching band alone, we'll just stick to the 746 young men and women that we have. That's a small town. The last job I was at Baylor, my wife taught at a 4A high school that had less kids in the high school than we have in the marching band here. My first high school, I went to 2 high schools when I was a student. Our first high school was less than that. We had like 600 kids. I can't get over these numbers, Phil.
Here's some more. When we travel, when we go to a football game, an away game, we take 18 buses. 18 buses, and because you don't want to split buses up, we have to take a police escort with us whenever we travel, because you know it's the in-town driving when you get lights. So we need some help because we need to get these buses through these lights. What if we take charter buses on a playoff game? It's 15 charter buses.
Wow. Wow.
So we are literally moving a small town every single time we travel. This is also fun too. Last year, I didn't believe it. But we normally have a rehearsal before an away game out on the practice field, and we have our 18 buses lined up. And the very first away game is like, this is going to take forever. And then my associate, who's here the year before I got here, it was his second year. He's like, no, we can load the buses in 10 minutes. I was like, wait a second. You're talking from dismissing to putting instruments away and picking up Chick-fil-A on the way to the buses. We can do this in 10 minutes? Like, okay. It was 10 minutes on the dot when every kid was on a bus.
Wow.
So we get 746 kids from practice field to equipment to feeding on buses in 10 minutes. And that just floored me, because when I had a band of 120, I couldn't do that.
So I have a lot of questions because these numbers are so large. And as you mentioned, bigger than many other high schools and some towns. I'm sure I have listeners who are in towns smaller than this. And so when I look at these numbers, so you said 1,800 kids playing winds and percussion between 6th grade and 12th grade. I looked at the high school website, and I see that you have 8 directors. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. We do.
So you have 8 high school directors, and how many middle school?
We have three middle schools, and 2 of the middle schools have 3 directors, and the other middle school has 2 directors.
So you have so many directors, and you have 16 at the high school and the middle school. And so you and I talked very briefly about it. You must have a lot of movement, because do young band directors look at Allen as a place to kind of grow and then to move on to a bigger job or to their own higher profile position for themselves?
I'm not really sure, honestly, to answer that, since it's my second year here and I'm sort of going through it as well. But I think how the hierarchy goes is I'm the director of bands, Allen ISD, and I'm also director of bands at the high school. We have a director at the freshman campus, so he's sort of a director of bands over there.
Uh-huh.
And then we have an associate director of bands who's also the marching band director. I oversee marching band, but the associate director of bands is actually the marching band director.
I see.
So it's very, very collegiate, if you will, like the college format. And then he has the second band, and then we have sort of a third director. And so I hate to rank them, but we sort of rank them by their bands at this point. So we have me at the top band. My associate has the second band, and then the director at the freshman campus we consider as our third band, the freshman wind ensemble. And then the fourth band, that director he also does the jazz band here. And so directors sort of get, I hate to say plugged in, or I don't want to say stuck because that's so negative sounding, but if you're doing the fourth or fifth band, that's the fourth or fifth band. I don't know, individually people grow at different rates. The fourth band's never going to play the literature that my band's going to play. So when a director starts developing great rehearsal technique and starts developing more sophisticated musical taste, but we're still doing, the grade 3 EYL list, I could see where staff members want to grow a little bit. I haven't experienced it yet, but we have some amazing directors here that, that when that time happens, well, I think I need to be an associate at another high school. That needs to happen. It very much needs to happen.
From my perspective, and I said this to you privately before, I am at the point in my career where I would welcome not being the top. I'd welcome being in a slotted position below where you could kind of just make music with kids and do your thing. That seems to me attractive. It's really funny. I just talked to Rachel Maxwell for the show, and she's the director at Trauber Middle School up in the Chicago area. And she said that when she retires, she wants to be a second director somewhere in Texas. That was her thing. She's like, I'll file your music for you. It's a terrific interview, but
yeah, that was last week. I remember listening to that interview. I think I was at the gym. I think she's talked about she listens to you running. So
yes,
if I remember that right.
Yeah, so, it seems to be a joke now is that people lose weight to the Everything Band podcast.
I guess I was listening to her interview while I was at the gym too. So
this is the service I do for the community. See, so this is what I'm doing for you all.
It's awesome now.
So I have a lot of things that come out of this. And so my main questions when we talk about 800 students, and now we could talk about the profile of Allen and the type of music and the type of composers that you're doing. You're obviously at the very top, the pinnacle of the high school band world. But I want to know about some of the nuts and bolts thing that come with 800 students.
Sure.
Like, first, discipline and procedure must be everything.
800 kids versus 8 adults. 800 kids are going to win every single time. There's nothing 8 adults can do to make, you can't make 800 kids do it. So I realized that last year we would have, believe this or not, at the end of the band camp days, we would put all of the winds and the battery in the band hall. We have a pretty massive band hall, but we can fit them. It's tight. But that was the part of the day I hated, because when you're with your friends, it's the summer, there's going to be a little chit chat, but a little chit chat with 600 kids turns out to be really aggressive. And while kids are being kids, when we're together, we have to be silent. And that's hard to do when band is such a social thing. So I hate to say I was fighting that, but I was fighting that a lot that first year. And I needed to start doing leadership talks in the spring. For a kid, it's like, oh, if I want to be a leader, I got to go to this. Well, yes, you do. But it was the opportunity to talk about culture and building relationships. So we started creating this leadership seminar, and it's going on strong every Wednesday in the spring semester, that we talk about what leadership is and what kind of culture do we want as a band. And this is all collaborative. I let the kids talk. And when I let the kids talk, it creates ownership. And when the kids are making the rules, they're gonna enforce it. So it really was about relationships and culture the whole time. And we started talking about Maxwell's 21 irrefutable laws of leadership this semester. It's just incredible what young people can do when their minds are set to take ownership. So after we did that last year, we started marching band this year. It was a totally different sort of animal. The kids wanted to be quiet because this is the culture that we wanted, collaboratively with the directors and the students. And we were able to get things done efficiently. Things were quiet. Whenever we're together, they know we don't talk because we can't. Talking gets in the way. So it's just a culture that we've just developed, and giving the opportunity for the kids and the leaders to do some sectionals, let them do some things. It frees up. We don't have a staff that some marching programs they hire. Here's our percussion staff. Here's our brass staff. Here's our woodwind staff. It's just the directors. So when you're talking about that many kids on a field and there's 8 of us, we have to trust the kids, and we entrust the kids as well because it's their organization. And when we flip that perspective, things just completely change. They want to be there. They want to be quiet because it's their ensemble. So it makes teaching a lot easier. So yeah, and we have to do it. It has to be their culture, and it works. And if I knew what I did now, when I had a much smaller program, why didn't I do it back then? There's so many things that we're forced to do being almost 800 people for us to just survive. That just makes sense. It's just for the sake of efficiency. And, that should be a clinic, the Allen way or something, because what we do makes sense and small bands could do what we do.
You should submit it to Midwest.
It's someday. I haven't figured Allen out yet, but when we figure Allen out, I think there's so many things that everyday band can just do, that I've learned here in just a year. If I just did this when I was in Orlando, things would have been so much easier, but we're just forced into doing it.
Yeah. It's really interesting how this happens in big programs and great programs, how it sort of perpetuates itself. We see this in sports and in college sports teams that sort of year after year have this excellence. And we see it in band programs as kind of like it sort of self-perpetuates. The older kids pass down the the sort of the expectations to the younger kids, and everyone sort of falls in a line. It's pretty remarkable. Mm-hmm. But yet you have to be good shepherds of this.
Yes, because that can easily sort of kill itself too. We have to guide it, and we have to collaborate, and I hate to say we have to sell it, but we do. We have to sell, this is the program we want. Don't you want this? And of course they say yes.
Yeah.
And then they, and they believe it. And once they start believing in it, it happens, it works. And I'm really excited to get next year started, the big band, the escadrille.
So this might be this is a hard question to ask because I'm not sure how to word this, but when you do have a student who's not bought in and maybe being disruptive or creating a sort of disrupting the chemistry that you have.
Well, first of all, the culture of band in Allen is strong. People want to be part of this. When you decide in sixth grade and fifth grade that I want to do band because I want to be in that marching band, and that's really what it is. They want to be here. The biggest policing we have to do is the social stuff. So fortunately the culture has created a kid that wants to be part of the band. They don't want to get kicked out. But if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. I know one of those pithy little sayings that it is, but that's true. If you're an issue, we have conversations, and we do have a disciplinary track, that involves, first of all, it's student and director, their band director. And then if it has to come to me, I take care of the bigger discipline problems as director of the band. And then after that, if there's still problems, then we talk with a parent. And then after that, if it goes beyond that, then we're going to remove a student, and we can remove students in the middle of the year, which our administration allows us to do. They have to stay in the class the rest of the semester, but they don't have to do they don't have to go to football games. And if there's anything about this town, it's those football games. The kids want to go to those. They want to be part of the band at football games. It's really hard to explain. I didn't understand it till I got here. It's so funny. When we moved to Texas, I watched Friday Night Lights with my wife, the whole series, but this is Texas. Welcome to Texas. We are Friday Night Lights. It might be a different demographic. Our demographic is pretty middle upper, I think, here. Which makes things great for lessons and equipment. But the kind of town we are that football town. When we lost in the state semifinals, you saw tears. People were incredibly, Duncanville beat us. And we were supposed to go to the state championship game again. And it was that wasn't supposed to happen. The collective psyche on our community was just incredible, and so the kids want to do this. And I know that we have listeners out here who's like, well, we don't have that kind of community. You're right. The kids want to be part of what we are. We do have a chain of discipline to remove a student.
This is interesting, and I'm sure I'm going to have some people who disagree with me. I don't ever claim to have a huge amount of high school experience. I taught for 4 years, and now I'm back for a year teaching 4th through 8th grade. So It's not like I have some sort of long expertise to be dispensing advice. But when I listen to your story, it seems to me that the main lesson here is that you want to have kids in your band, whether you have 10 kids in your band or 800 kids in your band who want to be there. And I think sometimes when I was a young band director and my whole goal was to build a program from nothing up, I was so proud of my numbers. I went from 12 to 80.
That's awesome.
But I fought tooth and nail for every kid. And I don't know if I would do that now. If I have a student who doesn't want to be in band, I don't want to go beg them because I think it creates problems down the road.
I think you're right.
But that's hard.
It is hard. If there's any advice that I could give to listeners is, the reason I came back to doing high school band was about the student. If everything is student centered, everything's going to happen for the right reasons. I know competition, which is, a question that's coming up. Some kids are jazzed up by competition. I am. Sometimes there's something about charter buses and the smell of gasoline that gets you fired up. I don't know what it is, but it's super fun. But it should never ever be about that. The it to me is about making things student centered first, and it's probably equal to making music. As a public school band director, something different from college is about the music, but this is about the music. We're part counselor, we're part everything. To me, the most important part, equal to the music, is that everything that we do is for the sake of the students. And when you make it about that, you're never going to lose kids. There's going to be kids that want to do it because, in 2019, there's something else I do. I talk about being authentic and being vulnerable, and that's a part of what we do. And that's something that this band thing provides. It gives people the opportunity to be vulnerable. So as a band director, you got to make it about that. Make it about the kid, not about I pick music that's too hard for UIL, and I got to hammer these notes out. You pick music that's too hard. Now you made it about the notes. Make it about the kids, that they can achieve and that they can have fun with, they can enjoy, they can struggle together with as a community, and we solve things and fix things. When it's about the kid, the numbers go up.
Yeah, that is very, very, very true. Very true. Yep. So it's interesting. You talk about that. I think back to John Southall, who I interviewed last year. He's episode 40. Do you know John?
I do know John. I love John Southall.
John is one of the most kind and wonderful people I know, but that was his whole interview was student-centered, put the student first. I think back to that fondly. Every
problem goes away when it's about the students. If there's kids that don't want to be part of that, they will leave on their own. And they won't fight. I don't feel like I belong. But when it becomes about the students, they take ownership. They know it's a safe place where you're not going to get made fun of, where we're going to have the same problems, whether you're in the top band or whether you're in the ninth band. We're all going to have the same problems, and we're in this together. And when our staff collectively believe in that philosophy, band's a great place to be in. It's a welcoming place. It's not overwhelming. It might be challenging, but so is life. And when kids get out of this program or graduate high school, these are the life skills that employers and schools look for. Out of the box thinking that embraces vulnerability, teaches authenticity, and works together. That's the employee that you want, and that's we preach.
Yeah, that advocacy piece is really important. Which brings me kind of in a roundabout way to my next question. Because when I talked about discipline and procedure, the other thing that's a huge part of 800 students is the band boosters. Mm-hmm. And so that organization must be massive.
We've changed the way we've done things between last year and this year. I don't have monthly booster meetings, and ironically, in the world of internet and email and everything, meetings are they're a little obsolete right now. If you can read a weekly email, you're probably good. But I do have a monthly meeting with our board. And last year we had, I don't know, they might be listening right now, maybe 16 or 17 people on our board that made all the decisions. And what we did is we've shrunk that, and I don't have it in front of me. But if you go to allenband.com and find the booster page, we have a president and I think 4 or 5 different vice presidents that have their own committees. So I communicate with the president, and the president communicates with the vice presidents, and the vice presidents communicate with their committees. And that's how we set the program up. And then we meet once a month as a whole. All the vice presidents are supposed to communicate with their committees. For example, logistics our vice president of logistics does things like our pit bulls, which are our equipment parents, band dads and band moms that like to schlep things or build things. The logistics is also in charge of our food committee, who orders which is a job of itself, ordering the right amount of Chick-fil-A sandwiches every week, or how do we get Chick-fil-A transported to our competition site, or how do we get the barbecue transported to our competition site? I mean, it's a big deal. It's, last year's president, she's not our president this year because her daughter graduated. She had a full-time job at the same time as this. She still is at that full-time job, but it was like 2 full-time job being a volunteer. These are all volunteers, which is incredible. These are volunteers, and they put a lot of time in. And I have to say the president and the vice presidents do all the work, and then their committees do a little bit, which is how we make that work. And we can't do what we do without our parents. We have a vice president that's in charge of volunteers. And if you can imagine that kind of week in, week out, and here in Texas high school football, once football starts and we go to championships, last year we had the state championship 2 days before Christmas. That's a lot of Fridays and Saturdays. And we have parents that want to help out. They're part of the culture too. They just want to help out, which is awesome. And again, there's some listeners out there. It's like, I can't get my parents to do that. You're right. We have this amazing Texas high school culture in a town that supports 100 and some thousand people. It's funny. This is the biggest small town in America. Everything about what we do is small town with the big town, the big city sort of extras, if you will. We certainly are good financially, and I know in 2019, it's like, I wish we had more money and more resources. And I have to say, we have the right amount of money, the right amount of budget. Our boosters raise the right amount of money for us. We have all the equipment that you can imagine. And we're very lucky. We're very lucky that our town just blew up and into what it is. And we're not the only lucky ones. Academics, athletics, there's a lot of great funding here because of we're the one high school model. If you had Allen could be split up into 3 different 6A high schools. That means you have 3 media centers. You've got 3 cafeterias. You've got 3 performing arts centers, 3 practice fields. We just outfit 1 high school, and that to us saves money. And then our surrounding districts sort of, well, we can't do that because we're growing so much faster than Allen is. We can't just do the 1 high school. So they open up smaller high schools. So I think it's the sweet spot right here, and you have a lot of taxpayers that, their taxes go into 1 high school concept. And it's the largest small town that you'll ever find. And we're very lucky.
Yeah, it's interesting. I went to high school. My senior year of high school was in a town of 100,000 in California, and there were 4 high schools in the city.
Yeah, imagine if it was 1 high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What you could do with 1 high school.
Well, right, because each school had its own band, had its own, everything.
Right. I mean, some people say it's excessive right here, but when you come here in the summer and you see 800 kids, we wish we had more rooms.
Sure. So Phil, this is becoming like Texas, a supersized episode, because we've been talking mostly about the logistics of actually Allen and the program, but I haven't asked you many of the questions I normally ask about programs. So I did sort of hint at it earlier that you're kind of at the very top program. You're playing in some wonderful venues, and you've probably worked with some great composers. I know you mentioned John Mackey in our pre-conversation. What kind of composers are you working with? What kind of things are you doing that are special?
I've always been a fan of consortiums and commissions. When I was in Orlando, we commissioned a local composer in the Orlando area, Christopher Marshall. We also commissioned, we were part of a consortia with a piece called Turning by John Mackey. That doesn't get a whole lot of play, but it's actually pretty sophisticated music. When I got here last year, we were on a Dan Welcher commission. A neighboring high school, Wiley High School, they played at Midwest, and they commissioned, and they got a couple of area bands to commission a piece by Dan Welcher. Last year, we did it. We were part of the consortium, another Mackey consortium, Winter Secret King. This year, Mackey's working on resetting the first movement of Wine Dark Sea for something a little easier, a little more accessible. And our freshman band is on that consortium. And we commissioned Ryan George to write a fanfare, a band fanfare for us for the opening of our new Lowry Freshman Center. It just opened this year. I haven't seen it yet. We're supposed to get it in the spring, but we're in no rush. But I think it's important. We can't have music without composers. And I hate a shout out to John. He put probably a little innocuous to me, but he put an Instagram post of the wind ensemble performing Wine Dark Sea, and I have to say they performed magnificently, the wind ensemble, and he put this on Instagram and Facebook, and we got a lot of positive social media out of that, and that single act alone, we have Frank Tekeli coming out, working with our orchestra, choir, and band at the next fall. And I was just able to secure a residency with Adam Schoenberg to work with the wind ensemble and hopefully our second band next February. So a little bit of social media, and we have some good kids and some good performances. We've sort of turned this place into sort of a college atmosphere, which is terrific. Now, I'm talking about the top band, and I got to say, I didn't say this earlier. Allen the percentages is the average high school band. Our top 2% is the same as the top 2% as any band program. It's just with our numbers, that's our top band. So we have an entire band full of the top 2%, which I have to say is pretty remarkable. They are incredible, I have to say. And our second band is working on Pines of Rome for UIL, all four movements. And that's a second band, high school band. We do have 7 more bands after that. As you can imagine, our bottom 2% is the same as the bottom 2% of every band program. That just happens to be a very large bottom 2% band here. Which a lot of those kids are here for the football. They're here to make it about the social aspects of band, and we don't shy around that. We make it social too. It's fun. We make it fun for them. We make it an environment that they can learn. But there's a band for everybody here when you have 9 bands.
So what kind of music? I mean, so obviously the top 2%, the band you're playing, grade 5, grade 6, mostly. You must be playing on a given day everything from grade 2 to grade 6.
Well, absolutely right. The 8th band, which is the bottom band, if you will, at the high school, for UIL, we're doing a march called Guardians of Liberty. We're doing, I forgot the name of Tony's doing a piece, and check this out. We have 3 band directors running the 8th band, because this is where those students run into the undesirable habits like talking or their phone blew out, that kind of stuff. So we have 3 of us, and it's me, the associate director band, and the 3rd director here at Allen High School. The top 3 directors are actually direct and hover over, if you will, the students in the 8th period band. Now, because we pretty much take care of all the discipline problems and the kids they do what they're supposed to, they learn to enjoy music because they're not on their phones and we're on their case. It's tough. If you can imagine 100 kids of your bottom 2%, that's what that is. And they're just great kids. They're so much fun. But we're playing, I would say, probably grade 3 UIL music, grade 2 UIL music. And they do it happily. They're making music. It's not hard. We just make good sounds. And again, we make it student-centered, something that is in their wheelhouse, and we make it fun. We do rhythms. We count rhythms. We practice sight reading every single day with something. And we just make it a game. We make it fun. And they're really good at it right now. So we just have to turn the 8th band hat on when it's time to get in front of them. It's a little bit of work, but it's fun.
All right, so let's talk about these final questions. And so the first one is, where do you draw the line between healthy and unhealthy competition in music?
See, I think competition is fun. And I think there's a lot of things that competition does. It creates intensity. It creates people getting on the same page. It creates excellence. And you never like to compare yourself to other bands or other programs. But I think if you want to know where you're at, you need to see where you're at with other people. And when you put 800 people together, our product, we don't split up into a varsity band and a non-varsity marching band. What you see is what you get. And as you would imagine, our feet probably aren't as clean as some of the BOA bands that are around us. We have to, in our area here, we compete with Flower Mound and Marcus and Hebron. When you look at the BOA scores nationally, they're three of the best bands in the country, and we have to compete with them. But we can't. We have with how many feet we have to clean up. It's pretty much impossible. So we don't view competition in the sake of beating other bands, but we create that opportunity for the kids to compare and to grow and to create excellence within ourselves. And I think that's healthy. And like I said earlier, when you start smelling the fumes, there's something about it. It gets everybody so excited about competing. Let's see how we do. And that has to be driven by the philosophy of the program to make it right. I think there's a great balance between competition with kids, but it can't be it has to be student-centered. And when it becomes about the competition, to me, and it's my opinion, you're doing the wrong things. It's about the kids.
All right. So now this question is interesting because it has lots of implications. And I just listened to the After Sectionals podcast, and they talked about the concept of work-life balance and how it's kind of a little bit of a false question for a band director. Mm-hmm. And so I've been thinking a lot about this question. And where do you find work-life balance as a band director, as a musician?
Actually, it took me a long time to figure this out. I'm not saying I figured it out. Again, here at Allen, we're lucky. Our day ends at 4:05. Directors go home at 4:05, and that's the way I want to have it here. That's the way they like to have it. And there's probably no other place in the country where you can leave at 4:05, and that's when our contract day ends, at 4:05. And we're fortunate that we have 8 band directors, so we split the duties up. Someone does lockers, someone does instrument inventory, someone does solo and ensemble, someone does the private lesson stuff, someone does marching band. So we can get all of our stuff done during the school day. So that's a little unfair question here. But I really do believe you should do your schoolwork at school and never bring it home. I used to be my own band director. I was the only guy in Orlando. I was fortunate at university. I had 2 assistants. We were able to split some things up, but you can't split it up. And I would take things home. I'd go back to school on the weekends. And to me, that's, again, it's my opinion. I think that's dangerous because you want to love what you do. And when it becomes a burden, when you have to get it done because you didn't get it done, so you got to go in on Sunday, that's unhealthy to me. But my advice is get it done at school during this Monday through Friday. If you need to go a little bit later, you just need to get it done. But you need to set your own, I guess, calendar or schedule. You need to go home at 5 o'clock, 5:30. You need to go home at 5:30. It's going to be there the next day. I think, and that's easier said than done because I would set the alarm and I would work past the alarm. I think it's because we're so passionate what we do as music educators. And yeah, it is fun, but that balance is important. Wellness is important. Family is important.
Yeah. And it's not a hard and fast rule. It's what you can tolerate yourself. But your advice is really good. My father taught for 54 years, and he always told me that once the tires hit the road out of the school parking lot, leave it behind. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
we're very, yeah.
He lived by that.
Yeah, we're lucky that we can do that here. 4 or 5 hits, we're out. We're out the door.
Yeah, that's pretty fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you have a really good gig, Phil.
I love it. I love doing the work every single day, and I love leaving at 4 or 5.
All right, Phil, this is a big question. What are the challenges facing music education or band, and how can we best meet them?
I think you hit it with the work life, the balanced work life. I think the biggest challenge is being available for our students and having to go in every single day, because I don't think there's a single music major out there that is doing things for the wrong reasons. I think we're all in there for the kids. And then when the rubber hits the road, it changes. Either competitions change us, or the paperwork changes us, or those meetings that you have to go to for our students that have a little extra paperwork on them, and that gets in the way. And I think the biggest challenge is to try to maintain focus, that it's about music and the kids and making it about music education. Because when I would tell I hate doing this, but when I talk to my student teachers, the stuff that you like doing, that's like 10% of the job, and the rest of it's administration or this or that. And I think that's the biggest challenge for music educators, trying to be music educators. And I don't know if I have a solution for that, other than trying to figure out your balance and that work-life balance. Once you figure that out for you, I think you can make yourself available to be a more vulnerable, more authentic music educator.
All right, so I hand you a time machine and I say you can go back and give one bit of advice to your 18-year-old self. What would it be?
I would tell myself to listen more than speak, especially after graduating high school. Don't think you know it. Everybody has something to say that's great, and we can learn from everybody. That's how you build a networking portfolio, if you will. When you become a music educator, there's only so much you can do. You need your friends. You need the people that you can just call up, like, I'm having trouble with this. The more you listen, people like talking about themselves. The more you listen, the more you create those networks and the comfort level with the people around us. And listen before you speak. I wish I'd listened more.
I still wish I listened more. It's really true. I've brought this up a lot of times. We've talked a lot about this with various guests. Networking is about building relationships.
Yeah.
It's not about collecting business cards.
That's right.
So, it's my best advice. I just saw it popped up in the band directors group. What advice, if I senior music education major, what advice would you give me? Build your network, find your mentors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that nourishes you, that sustains you. In fact, my move back to teaching elementary school would not have happened without the network I built on this podcast. One of my guests, I called up, said, I want to take this interview, and she walked me through the entire process, and I got the gig. And so.
That's awesome. Yeah. I still talk to my mentors, and it's when you start, you're going to be a mentor yourself, and you want to mentor people, and you still want. I learn from my students every day. My 16-year-old kids in class every day. And when I listen to my students, I learn more. When I listen to my colleagues, the other directors, I learn more and more every single day. So it's building relationships. It's that network. We're here for each other.
All right, Phil, if you had a choice, what would be the final work for wind or band or orchestra or choir that you would want to conduct, and why?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that too, because it's the question. I like beautiful music. When you go to conducting symposiums and you get that question, like what's the music? It comes back to me the Strauss Four Last Songs. I mean, it's that music that you could just bathe in. I don't know if it's conducting, because I just, that music is so intimate and so vulnerable, which is what music is all about. I just want to sort of just be in that moment, having the opportunity to be part and collaborate with an ensemble that can do that, and a singer. I think that's what I want to do.
Phil, this will be released sometime in the beginning of April 2019. Is there anything coming up that you would like to share or promote?
Um, there's nothing really coming up here in Allen, but anybody's welcome to contact me about what we do. We do a lot of things that are outside the box. I think next year, with Frank Tikelli and Adam Schoenberg coming on campus, I think that's an awesome opportunity to network and create those relationships with some amazing people. And if anybody wants to see what this machine looks like, on Friday Night Lights, our place is always open here. If anybody wants to come out and visit in the fall, just to see what it's like or see what this machine is like, because we do a lot of different things here that I'd love to share if given the opportunity. So anybody could just contact me. My email is on our website, allenband.com, and we can set this up with anybody.
Phil, thanks so much for your time.
You too. I appreciate it.
This was a great conversation.
Thanks. Absolutely. I've enjoyed the talk.